Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Imperfect Momming, and we have a very special guest with us today, Jennifer Jakobsen. Welcome to Imperfect Momming.
Thank you, Alicia. I'm so excited to be here and to chat and see what we can talk about today.
Yeah. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So I am a life and mindset coach for mom entrepreneurs. So what that means is I help moms who have businesses grow their businesses, be successful in business as well as in family life without the guilt and the overwhelm, and hopefully while having much more fun. So that's me in a nutshell. I am a mom of 3 girls. I have a 11-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 15-year-old who will be 16 literally in 2 days. So
happy birthday.
Yes, I know, right?
Yeah.
And I have been, in my past life, I was a psychotherapist, and then I was a stay-at-home mom, and now I am a certified life coach who works with moms. I've been working with moms for about 5 years, and since the beginning of this year, I've been working specifically with mom entrepreneurs because that now is my passion, because I think mompreneurs are amazing. If you are a mom and you own a business, you are a rare breed, and I want to help those very, very courageous ladies to, have all the success that they deserve for taking on those 2 humongous projects in life, right?
Right, because being a mom is a full-time job.
Yes.
And being an entrepreneur most of the time is 3 full-time jobs.
Yes.
And then you may even be a wife or a girlfriend or, have some romantic role in your life, which is also a full-time job. So we have 5 full-time jobs.
Yes.
And
at least five. Yes.
At least 5. Right. And so it's funny that I've been really kind of trying to figure out if I wanted to specifically talk to entrepreneurial moms.
Yeah.
Because I know there's a lot of coaches that cater to entrepreneurial moms. And I felt like the everyone else, all the moms that don't own a business, are kind of left out.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So do you feel like that, or do you see that there is a market for moms who are not specifically owning a business?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a market for all of it, right? I mean, I think it's just that when you are in business, and let's face it, we're in business because, even though we all pretty much want to serve, we want to make a difference, we want to help, we also need to make money, because that's just the society and the world we live in. We have to make money. And for me personally, I was a life coach for moms in more of a general sense for a while before I switched to mom entrepreneurs. And I will be completely honest with you, moms very, very rarely, unless you're in a very specific niche of moms, they very rarely invest in themselves. Mm-hmm. Now, moms who own businesses will invest in their business. And moms, so if you're a parent coach for moms, say, moms might invest in their kids or in things along those lines. But it's really hard. And it's a very, very sad truth that moms don't invest in themselves. They will put everybody else first before they put themselves first. So it's a much needed niche, and it's a very I think it's a very brave niche to get into, but it's probably one of the hardest niches, because in terms of making money, it's gonna be very tricky.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you just described like my journey as an entrepreneurial mom, right? So I've never not been an entrepreneurial mom.
Yeah.
I've had a business since before my son was born.
Okay.
Not very much longer, actually since before he was conceived, not very much longer before he was conceived, maybe about 9 months, but
Okay.
I've been an entrepreneur since before I was even a mom. And so I've never not been. Oh, I hate saying it that way, but it makes the point that I've never not been an entrepreneurial mom. So that was kind of the thing that I was struggling with the most. It's like, I don't know how moms that aren't entrepreneurs think, because I've never been a mom that was an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And so I would say to anyone listening, and if you are if you, Alicia, are thinking yourself like, I want to help other moms, but they're not entrepreneurs, it is more difficult to help people that unless you've been in their shoes, because I think people really, it's so important in business to have that like know, like, and trust thing, right? We all talk about that. And if you've never actually been there yourself, it's going to be more tricky for you to know what that experience is like. Now, you can absolutely find that through market research and that sort of thing, but I definitely think it's going to be more of a passion for you too, if you've been there, you've lived it, you've gone through those, ups and downs, you've had those pain points. So I definitely think it's easier as far as niching to do something that was like you, like a year or two ago.
Right.
That makes sense.
For sure. It's easier to talk to the earlier version of yourself than it is to talk to somebody that you've never been.
Absolutely.
And therefore don't understand, because you've never been that person.
Right.
And I think that the entrepreneurial mindset doesn't mean that you have to own a business. The entrepreneurial mindset is a growth mindset. So this is the conversation that I just had like an hour before you and I are jumping on, is that so someone who is thinking about how I could have done something differently, that's a growth mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my big thing that I talk the most about probably is mom guilt.
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't talked about it specifically as an entrepreneur mom. It's always been kind of just moms. I've only heard 2 moms ever say, I don't have mom guilt. 2. And I've talked to lots of women.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm shocked there's 2. I mean, I haven't heard it from anyone.
And I mean, I didn't challenge it because I'm not going to say, well, I bet you do have mom guilt, so let's find it. It's like, okay, you don't have it. I'm not going to create it for you.
Right. Exactly.
What kind of horrible mom are you that you don't have mom guilt?
Or can I live in that bliss, right? Like, if you don't have guilt, how are you pulling that off? That's amazing.
Yeah, I think she was a relatively new mom, but again, it was like it was a passing comment. I don't have guilt. It's like, okay, great, awesome, good for you. And can you teach me? It's like, can you teach people how to not have? But again, you have to have the guilt in order to know how to teach people to not have the guilt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if you're listening to this podcast and you're not an entrepreneur, but you're listening to this podcast because you're wanting to improve yourself, that's the entrepreneurial mindset.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. You're wanting to grow, you're wanting to become kind of that best version of yourself. I can see the parallels there for sure. Yeah.
Because what they're teaching in school now, I only know this because of distance learning.
Right.
But they're teaching the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. And I was teaching a group of women the difference between growth and entrepreneurial, and there really isn't a difference in those two mindsets. They're pretty much one and the same. It's just how you label it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right. And I think it's so cool that that they're teaching that to our kids, because I don't think any of us like knew what the heck that meant when we were in school, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's super, and I think it's really good for the moms to learn it as well. 'Cause it's like the kids are learning it at school and we're like, what does that mean? What is a growth mindset? What is a fixed mindset? I think it's really important that we get on board too, so we can support what they're learning in the schools.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And the cool thing is there's also a program called Kidpreneur that Facebook's been advertising to me for at least 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And they discounted it to like $9. So I was like, oh, well, let's see what that is. Cause I wasn't going to invest, $25 into something that he's not going to be interested in or might not be interested in. But $9, I was like, I could throw away $9 if he's not interested in it. But I'm interested in seeing what they're going to teach a 9-year-old about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. You'll have to let me know once you, once you read through that. Yeah.
And that's one thing that my son's really, he pays attention to what I do. And that's kind of the point of the podcast, is that kids are paying attention to what we do. And so he's been drawing a lot lately, and he said, Mom, is there like a place that I can put this on Google where people can see my pictures? And I was like, I don't know, we'll have to Google it.
Yeah.
And there's a website for kids to post their artwork and highlights. Do you remember highlights from when we were kids?
Oh my gosh.
The highlights magazine said submit your work here. I don't know, I'll try it because why not? But what he draws is his video game characters.
Of course.
So,
right.
He draws what he knows, right?
That's so cool. Yeah. I mean, and to be able to research that and look and see, but there actually is somewhere you can post this, and and that's so cool. There's like something for everything out there, something for everyone out there. Yeah. There
really is. And I think that following what you're passionate about is that's been a topic in our households. My boyfriend's really kind of trying to figure out like what his thing is, like what he could do as a side business, because he sees me doing my business and he's always wanted to be an entrepreneur too. Yeah. And so he's really just trying to think of, ways to expand his income and multiple streams and whatnot. So he was saying the other day, he's like, you know what? We got to teach Xander, which is my son, like we got to teach him that it's just about following your passion. Yeah. Because you could, if you're like the best drawer of the sands, thing, like, which is the name of the video game. If you're the best drawer of that, like there's a market for that somewhere. I don't know why, but there will be. It's just, it's the way that the world is now. Like everyone has the ability to have a platform. Yeah. I mean, that's like why we're the land of opportunity, right? It's so great that like, there's so many different platforms for so many different things. And we do have the opportunity to become entrepreneurs and become, whatever our passion is. Like we can do that. And I don't even think when I was a little girl that like, I realized that, you know what I mean? Like that I could actually like have my own business doing, like I was like, oh, I'm going to be a therapist one day, which I did do that for a long time, but having your own business where you're your own boss, you set your own hours, like there's no better freedom and there's just no better situation than that. And so, which is the other reason why I really want to support women who do that, because it's such an incredible thing for moms to be able to do, is have their own business where they can set their own hours. They can be there with their children. They don't have to have the guilt in the same way, because now they're at home, working from home, doing their business, doing their passion, and they can still participate in their kids' lives, which I think is what like
I mean, a lot of moms really would love that opportunity.
Right.
And so, and so that's why I'm passionate about mompreneurs, because I want to help them to really be able to bring that dream and that vision to life so that they can be there for their families. And so they can have it all, because, we think, well, we can't have it all. We're either a mom or we work, but no, you can be a mom and you can work and you can set your hours and you can do all these things,
Right.
but it's not easy is the thing. It's
Definitely.
it's definitely, not for the the faint-hearted, right?
Right. And I mean, who wants to take on 5 full-time jobs? And that's kind of what you sign up for as an entrepreneur. And then there's, yes, you get to be there with the kids, but then if you don't have a healthy detachment or a healthy like work-life balance and harmony between the two, then you feel guilty when you're not working, and then you feel guilty when you're with the kids, and it's like, what? It really feels like damned if I do and damned if I don't. Like, it really feels like that. And but it doesn't have to.
No. And that's what I help moms with. That is like you just kind of nailed it on the head right there. Like, that's what I want to help moms with, is to shift those thoughts, because we feel guilty. And the reason that we feel guilty, so our thoughts come before our feelings, right? So if you're feeling guilty, it's because you're having a thought that is telling you something negative, something that's causing the guilt. So for example, it might be, you are not a good mom if you're focusing on your work and not focusing on your child. If you're not the room mom, if you're not the PTO president, if you're focusing on your business, you're not a good mom. That is a thought, and that's all that is. And we can change that thought, because the fact is that's not true. Being the room mom or the PTO president doesn't have anything to do with being a good mom, And so then you got to kind of dig in. Okay, well, what does it mean to be a good mom? For me, being a good mom for me is my children knowing that I love them unconditionally, no matter what, and taking an interest in their lives and caring about what's happening to them. And you don't have to spend 8 hours a day doing that. Like, you can spend a very short amount of time with each of your kids and really connect and really, not that you're like not around, but you know what I mean? Like, the connection doesn't have to be happening all day, every day for you to be a good mom. But if you can find some time to, like, for me, I think it's really important. We call it special time in our house. And we don't do this as much anymore since I have teenagers, because they don't really care about time with mom anymore. They want to be with their friends. But, when kids are little, like, if you can take time and just have that special time just with that kid and it doesn't have to be like forever. It just could be like a half an hour, and this is your special time, and you can decide what we're doing, and you have my undivided attention. I won't be on my phone. I won't be working. And any of us can do that. Any of us can give them a half an hour. Right. And so what we have to do is shift our thoughts. Like, that's what it means to me to be a good mom. So what does it mean to each individual, and how can they show up in a way that feels really good for them, so that they don't have all that guilt? Because it's just, the guilt doesn't help us. The guilt doesn't help anything. It doesn't help our business. It doesn't help our family. It just makes us feel like crap. So we need to really look at those thoughts.
And honestly, I that's not something that I've talked about on the podcast before. And that's a concept that I didn't learn before. I listened to Brooke Castillo.
Yes, the life coach school.
Love
of
Brooke.
Course. Yeah, I do too.
She has the Life Coach School podcast, and she, in like one of the first 10 episodes, she broke down the what's the word? The flow.
They call it the model.
Call it the motto. Yeah, the model. Yeah. So, but the flow of what happens, because what we are aware of until we get into this type of work, what we're aware of is something happens, I react to it. Right.
Yep.
But there's at least 2 other things. Is there a 5th thing? So
So I think it's circumstance and then the thought.
okay,
And
so
then
something
the
happened,
feelings.
the thought and the feeling.
The circumstance, something happens, the thought that you have, the feeling that you have
and the
about,
reaction.
yeah, the feeling comes from the thought, and then it's an action and then a result, I believe.
Okay. So there are 5. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's CTFAR, I believe. And really what that is, if you look at the model, ultimately the only thing that you can change in all of that is your thought.
Right.
So the circumstance you can't change, the feeling kind of comes from the thought, the the action and the result, right? Those all, the way that you change how things happen and the way you change your results and your behaviors and your feelings is through your thoughts. And that was, I don't think that's something I learned until later in life either. And it's cognitive behavioral therapy is what it is, because that's what that comes from. But what's really cool is that if we can really get in touch with our thoughts, which is the tricky part, right? Because we have 60,000 thoughts a day. So to cue into any one thought, it takes some concentration. It takes some work to get super, super clear on our thoughts. And I have people like do maybe like a thought download, like where they just like kind of vomit all their thoughts onto a piece of paper. Or if you can do meditation, kind of paying attention to the thoughts that are coming in. But those thoughts are the only real thing that we can change. And if we can change our thoughts, we can change our feelings, our behaviors, and the outcome. Yeah. So,
and I hadn't thought about it that way either. So I love that you brought that up, that the thoughts are the only thing that we can control.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I do retroactively is when I have a behavior or a reaction or an action that I don't like, then I go back and I go, okay, what was the feeling? What was the thought that created the feeling? And then I do it retroactively.
Yes.
And so far that's the best I've gotten to, but it's better than operating without that knowledge.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I think it's really great to go back because, like I said, it's really hard to catch those thoughts like in the moment. But what you can do is you can keep kind of like you did, like tuning into, okay, what happened? Let's rewind. And okay, this is how I was feeling. So this is how I reacted. Let me go back a little bit further. What was I thinking right before I started feeling that way? And that's when you really get in touch with what's happening with you in your, in your body, and like, something's wrong. And then you go back and say, okay, what thought preceded that? And it's hard work. I'm not going to say it's easy to do, but that is where the real concrete change can happen. And that's all the mindset stuff. And that's why, like, I've heard this time and time again, and I agree with it, is that 90% of success in business is our mindset. Because if we can get in touch with those thoughts and really cue into that, like, we're going to be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mary Kay Ash is someone that I've heard a lot about through, her teachings. And that's one of the things that she said is 90% is between your ears. Like, it's 90%. And because the 60,000 thoughts that we have in a day, most of them are on repeat. That's why we're not aware of them.
Yes, exactly. Because they're so automatic, right? They happen like that. Yeah.
And so, what all that means is that we don't have to yell at our kids. We don't have to react to their behavior. We don't have to, be mad at our husband for, any amount of time longer than 3 minutes or whatever, because you could just dissect what happened. So
yeah, my
boyfriend and I don't argue very often. And so when it happens, I love dissecting it. It's my favorite thing. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it's my favorite thing because I was a guest on somebody else's podcast. This was already the second time that we were re-recording the podcast, because the first time my computer was on my lap. And so there was a lot of, which I don't ever do.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of interference. And so we're re-recording it. I told my son, hey, we're recording a podcast. And here's my mind read is he knows what that means.
Right.
He does know what it means, but I didn't remind him what that means.
Yeah.
And so, I give him a little bit of freedom when it's my podcast, and I let him know, if you want to come up and give me a hug or a kiss, that's great.
Yeah.
People watching, I'm sure they love it.
Yeah.
But the talking or asking me if I can get you chips, or like, where the chips are, how to get yourself a drink, like all of those things.
Right.
So then my boyfriend comes home and they're talking, and in my head, I said, hey guys, I'm on a podcast. Apparently it didn't come out that way. I didn't know how it came out, but apparently it didn't come out that way.
Yeah.
And within, I kid you not, within 90 seconds, my son is bouncing on our ball over there. You can't see it. Uh-huh. He's bouncing on the yoga ball, which makes the dog go crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The dog's barking. And then I hear my boyfriend's voice. I don't hear what he's saying, but I hear him, and I'm like, could you guys please get out of here?
Yeah.
Right. Well, that kind of triggers him because he was telling my son to be quiet.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And he literally hadn't even come into the house. So my living room is right behind me to my left. And so the front door is on the other side of the living room, and then there's an opening. He hadn't even made it to the opening of where our dining room is.
Uh-huh.
So he has no idea that I'm on a podcast, except that I just said it.
Right.
And so, but then the other thing in the back of my mind is, well, yesterday he's filling his water glass like with ice while I'm on a podcast recording. So there's already a little bit of irritation and like, you don't really respect what I'm doing thought, right? Yeah. So this is accumulating on top of that.
Yeah.
Well, when we finally talked about it, he's like, I never know when you're on a podcast. He's like, you're always on Zoom.
Yeah.
True. I am always on Zoom. And most of the time I'm just talking to my friend who lives in Canada, so he has no idea. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Like it diffuses all irritation.
Yeah,
all of it.
Because now you've checked your thoughts, right? Because your thought was, God, I mean, this is what I'm guessing.
Feel free to mind read.
How can he be so disrespectful? Doesn't he know I'm on a podcast? What is wrong with him? Like,
he doesn't support me. He doesn't believe in me. He doesn't want me to succeed. All of those thoughts.
Yes, right. Which stirs up what feelings, right? Like irritation, anger, frustration. But as soon as you check those thoughts, okay, is that true? No, those weren't even true thoughts, even though they felt very true to you. But when you did have that conversation, you're like, oh my God, he didn't even know I was on a podcast. So now all your thoughts are just garbage, right?
Right.
You're like, all those thoughts just went straight out the window, and now you feel better, right? And so, and that's what we do as humans, and it's totally normal, and we all do it, but that is what causes those feelings of, anger, irritation. I totally get it.
I don't know how many times I've seen in a Facebook group I just want doesn't my husband know that I want him to empty the dishwasher?
Nope.
You might have told him once.
No.
But then now you're expecting him to always know that every time the dishwasher is clean that you want him to empty it. And I'll tell you, my boyfriend has zero idea when the dishwasher is clean, even though there's a light and a sign. Like, he doesn't believe the sign. He thinks the sign is always wrong. And I'm like, oh no, I changed the sign so that it says dirty when it's dirty. I do that all the time, like every single time.
Yeah.
It's like, and I don't care. That's not like, to me, that's my job. Like, we've established those rules, but in this situation with a mom on Facebook, it's like, you haven't established the rule.
No.
And you haven't let him know that, hey, I want you to do this. Like, If you just use your words.
Right? I know, so basic.
I mean, it's like we tell our kids, use your words, and like we have to remember, use our words, like it's so simple when we remember. We make all these things so complicated.
Yeah, we really do. And I think that and I hate to generalize because it's not just women, but I feel like more commonly women are the ones who, like, we sort of assume a lot of things, and it's a lot of times it's more important to us that, like, these things get taken care of, and we don't want to have to ask because we don't want to be the nagging wife or the nagging girlfriend or whatever. So we don't say it. But the truth of the matter is by us not using our words and not speaking up, they don't know. They really don't know. I mean, I know my husband and I, like, he is definitely, like, it's not important to him that the house be neat or anything be picked up. Like, we could live in a complete, pigsty, and he would be okay with it. At some point, he might be not okay with it, but he can deal with it for a long time that way. I need everything neat. And so I have to consistently let people know what my expectations are. And it gets frustrating for me because I'm like, I already told you, but I have to remind myself that that is my value, not theirs. Yeah.
It's so, and that's so true. And it's, I learned this for the first time as an adult, like 32 years old, where my best friend and I decided to move in together. And before we decided to move in together, we discussed our must-haves and will not tolerates. Like,
so good.
And if in every relationship that you could do that, then I think that would solve like 75% of our problems, if not 90%. I think a lot of our problems come from the expectation of this is the man's role, this is the woman's role, or whatever. And it's really, there's no clear cut. You just said you have different values, than other people. And when she and I did that, and it worked so well, we probably had maybe like 2 or 3 fights the entire 4 years that we lived together. And everything else was just a discussion and a reminder of, Alicia, can you pick up after yourself? Remember how I said I don't like stuff in the comment area? It really was like, that was the extent of our problems. And anytime that there was more than that, it was unclear communication and unmet expectations and all that. But really the expectation piece was taken out because we had already discussed it.
Right.
And so I don't know where I was going with that, but like squirrel. So
I know, it's so true.
It really, I mean, if you take anything away from from this episode specifically, that would be what I would say to take away from.
We have to be clear because we just make so many assumptions about why other people are doing the things that they are. And I would say most of the time when we really get down to it, it's not what we're thinking. We make these assumptions, and a lot of the things that we automatically do in our brains is to keep us safe, right? So like going back to business, like people a lot of times in business, they don't want to take risks, or they don't want to put themselves out there on social media, or, and I know that I'm totally going a different direction with this discussion, but it's like the reason that we're afraid to do things differently, and the reason that we're these things cause fears in us or whatever, it's because that's what our brain does to keep us safe. But it no longer helps us when we need to push ourselves out of our comfort zone for business, or you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone in your relationships. You have to say, hey, this is what I expect, because, this is what I love that you had that conversation with your roommate. Like, these are my non-negotiables. This is what it has to be like. And a lot of people don't feel empowered enough to do that because they have all these fears, and they're just fears there to keep you safe, but they're not real fears. They're not founded on any we're like, oh, well, if I speak up, they're going to think I'm nagging, or if I speak up, they're going to think I'm a bitch, or I'm this, or you know what I mean? But those are things that we've created in our head, and they're not true. Yeah. We talked about the 60,000 thoughts and they repeat themselves. 80% of those thoughts are negative.
Right.
Yeah. We have so many negative thoughts.
If you think about it, all of those thoughts are thoughts they're disempowering thoughts.
Yes.
Right. They're like every single one of the thoughts that I had and mentioned were all reasons why I suck.
Yeah.
He doesn't love me, or he's doing that because I suck. And they're like, it couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
Like,
right.
He is so excited for me to be successful. He's so excited that I do the podcast. So excited. Like he's wanted to invest in all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm like, pull it in. Let's like rein it in a little bit. Like, let's just baby steps. Like, we don't need to drop $50,000 on equipment. Like, it just baby steps. Right.
Yeah. So totally agree with you. Yeah.
Totally different than my disempowering thought that he doesn't want me to be successful.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how our brain does that though? It's like, where did that come from? Why is my brain thinking this way?
Childhood.
It is. What'd you say?
I said childhood.
Usually. Yeah, usually. But again, it's to keep us safe, right? It's to keep us safe. And so that's why we assume those things. But they're not typically not true.
Because when we're kids, at some point, we don't know anything besides our own consciousness as children. We don't know that there's other reasons. And so we're meaning making machines when we're little. And so something happens, we decide, perfect example, my parents got divorced.
Yeah.
What happened just before your parents told you they were getting divorced? Your dad yelled at you for XYZ. Well, now the divorce is your fault.
Yeah.
If you hadn't done XYZ, and let's say that XYZ was like being, outgoing, or like just really like over the top, right? Like super cute personality. Now you're shy.
Yeah.
Because dad left because I was blah, right? Yep. And really dad just had a bad day and snapped at you,
right?
Because he's having a bad day.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with you, but we don't know anything else other than let's make it mean something else. And so I told a client today, I said, we create these filters when we're young, or, a child or an adolescent.
Yeah.
Well, just like a car needs to change its filter every once in a while, we need to change our filter.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
I was so excited. I feel so smart.
Yes. I love analogies.
And so like that's what coaches can do.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know, like that's a mechanic is the one that tells you that your filter needs to be changed.
Right.
Unless you're growing up around cars.
Yeah.
But for the most part, a mechanic's the one that tells you your filter needs to be changed. And so a coach can help you change your filter, and a coach can see your filter.
That's right. Exactly. And I think that's the important thing, is that people oftentimes like they think they can do it all themselves, right? They think they can see their blind spots, and they think that, their filter's fine, right? They don't think there's anything wrong with their filter.
You don't know there is one.
And as a coach or as a therapist, you're able to see things in people that they can't see themselves. And so I think that's why it's so powerful when and one of my favorite things about coaching is like when I'm talking to someone, either in my group coaching or one-on-one coaching, people are like, oh yeah, like they have that aha moment, right? Like I swear I do this for the aha moments. I love it when they're like, oh my God, you're right. Like I never thought of it that way. Or, oh my gosh, I never knew that about myself. And those aha moments are what transform us. And that's how the filter gets changed, right? That's how we are able to kind of repair ourselves and start to see things in a different light. So absolutely. I love that.
So I know that you have a little bit of a time constraint. I think we're coming up
do.
on that.
I just realized that we went so fast.
Yeah. Do you have time to give your little piece of advice for moms?
Oh gosh, I have so much advice. My biggest thing is don't put yourself last, because moms do this all the time. And the reason why is because if you put yourself first on your to-do list and you take care of yourself first, and I know you've heard this time and time again, but I really want you to hear it again right now. I'm giving you the permission, put yourself first, because what you don't realize is by putting yourself first, your business will grow, your business will thrive, and your family will thrive.
Right.
And it seems so backwards and opposite, but that is exactly the key to success, is to change the guilt,
Right.
change the filter. So
we can literally do a whole podcast episode on just what you said. So I'm going to move on.
Yes. I know. And my daughter's like totally texting me. I'm out of school. So I got to go do the mom thing. She's fine. She's walkable to school. She just doesn't like it because we live in Phoenix and it's like 100 degrees outside.
It's really do you have a second for a book?
You know, it's so funny. You asked me about books, and I'm weird with books. I haven't found one book that I love to like recommend to the masses. But I can say that probably my favorite book isn't even necessarily a self-improvement book, but it's a memoir. And it's oh Jesus, now I'm gonna forget the name of it. Oh my gosh. Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I read it a while ago, and even though it's a memoir and it's not actually, you know, an instructional like self-improvement book, I think that that's probably my favorite self-improvement book, even though that's not what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
That's my favorite book, I think. Yeah.
All right. Well, I will let you go and I can close off the podcast all by myself, but I would just want to say thank you for coming and pouring into our entrepreneurial mindset mommies.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. And if anyone out there listening is interested in learning more about me, I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes, but I always offer a free session. So that way we can get to know each other and see if I can help you. So I loved being on today, and I could talk to you forever. So I better go get my kid.
Right. Tell her I'm sorry.
No worries. Thanks so much, Alicia. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Sounds good.
Bye.
And we will have another episode of Imperfect Momming for you next week. And until then, keep healing. Have a great one. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit alicialyons.com. That's ALYSIALYONS.com. See you next time.